There, my name is Melissa Vert. I'm the Fellowship and Grants Coordinator at the International Institute, and this presentation is More Money, More Travel. It is a presentation to share all of the information about how we can help your students go abroad with international fellowships. This presentation is designed specifically for advisors and staff administrators at the University of Michigan. We did our best to try and make this as universal to the University of Michigan campus as possible. It's worth noting there are going to be some things that we present today that are going to be specific to certain departments, but by and large, we're trying to give you information about how to best prepare the students that you work with funding opportunities that give them the opportunity to support some of their study abroad, yes, but also find alternatives that will make getting outside the United States more affordable, regardless of whether or not they're on a study abroad program or they're on a specific scholarship or fellowship that gets them outside the United States. So let's get started. First, I want to point out on this landing page that we have two QR codes that will link to different resources. One is the II Fellowships website, which has recently been reorganized. So if you had any links on your pages that pointed to the International Institute's fellowships, we encourage you to double check that all of the links still work. And then also we have the Have Funding Will Travel spreadsheet. I'll get into the details a little bit for why it's named that way, but that is the II crafted repository of basically any scholarship or fellowship that we can think of. It is not exhaustive and it is as up-to-date as we can make it, which is to say that we encourage you to check any link that you might be utilizing for accuracy. But regardless, these are really two super big links and resources for you and for students and alumni. If you need to find someplace to go first, that's them. But let's move on. I would be remiss if I did not share all of the wonderful people that I have the pleasure and honor of working with at the International Institute. Our fellowship and grants team is the four people you see here. Heather Johnson regularly has been the lead for Fulbright U.S. student program for 20 years. She's extremely experienced in that. She's a wonderful resource. She's also sharing the Bourne Awards with me. My other colleague, Dr. Antakata, has also been working at the International Institute in Fellowships and Grants for 20 years. She is the person that will really support all of your grad students, especially as they seek scholarships that support their research. Predominantly, she focuses on the DDRA and the Fulbright Scholar Program. You have my colleague, Dan Cameron. Dan Cameron has been here as long as I have, for about 4-ish years, going on 5. Dan oversees the FLAS Foreign Language and Area Studies Fellowships. This is a great opportunity for any students who are studying languages. It's worth coming to talk to Dan and seeing what opportunities might exist for them. And then you have me. My name is Melissa, and I do the Luce Scholars Program as well as the Bourne Awards. I also run the International Institute Student Fellowships, which are big funding opportunities available within the International Institute for anybody who is attending the University of Michigan. If you have a student who is particularly interested in trying to find out more about scholarships, you do not have to pass go, you do not have to collect $200. You can send them directly to the iifellowships@umich.edu email address. That is something that all of us will see. We will happily sort the student into the appropriate spot where they can get the best information that is available, and we are happy to service them. So without any further ado, let's go on to what we're going to cover in this particular session. I want to make sure that you know we're going to do our best to kind of do a top-down idea of where you can find information, and then also what resources we can offer to administrators so that they have the best opportunity to share with students what scholarships might work for them. First off, we're going to cover all of the different locations, or at least a significant portion of the locations on the University of Michigan campus that has funding offices. We're going to start with financial aid when it comes to study abroad. That's normally your first stop. We'll cover some International Institute top opportunities. These are the things that every student should know exists so that they can determine for themselves what they want to do with that information when they want to plug that into their academic experience. We're going to share a little bit from the International Center, one of our buddies, and we're also going to share some really cool new opportunities for this year that have opened up just because the more people know, the more likely we're going to reach the right students that will give them this opportunity. We're going to cover some resources for the global educators, like I said, and some tools we have to break down when we tell a student about a particular scholarship. And hey, now that you're here, if you're staff, we're going to share with you some opportunities that we can uncover for you if maybe you've been looking for an international experience. And finally, we're going to cover some upcoming events that are going to happen again in 2023. So, where do you find your funding offices? You're not going to believe this, but the University of Michigan is heavily decentralized, meaning that the International Institute is not the only location that students could go to get a scholarship or fellowship that would give them opportunities abroad. In fact, there are many locations across campus. I want to draw your attention to the bottom left corner, which is where the Office of Financial Aid is in the Student Activities Building. This is every student's first stop when it comes to getting funding for study abroad. And when I say every student, I'm predominantly talking about current undergraduate students. That's where they can find money that supports their study abroad opportunities. But it's certainly not the only one. Most of the study abroad opportunities, while they do exist across campus, you're going to find an awful lot of them that exist over in CGIS, which is in the bottom right-hand corner in the same building as the International Institute. This is also where you're going to find the Gilman program. Now, I'm not going to specifically talk about this program, but this is an opportunity for students with Pell Grants. They have a really great opportunity to get additional funding to go do study abroad. But also, this is where all of the a lot of the study abroad opportunities exist, and therefore, through these programs, they're going to have some funding opportunities. But the big hitters are the three other institutions that you see on this map: the International Institute of Fellowship and Grants, that's us. Then you've got the Office of National Scholarships and Fellowships in Mason Hall, and the International Center. The International Center has fantastic opportunities. The one that we're going to talk about today is going to be the Peace Corps. Hopefully you've heard of that. We'll get into a couple details, but effectively this is after your undergraduate, you have the opportunity to go and work in the Peace Corps for about 2 years. This is just for the Office of National Scholarships and Fellowships. This is just a selection of the different things that they offer. They are housed in the school, in the honor school. That does not mean that honor students are the only people that can apply for these programs. So it's just worth knowing every student should be taking a look at this, seeing if this is something that's interesting to them, and considering if those things are things they want to do to apply. And then we'll move on and talk a little bit about International Institutes fellowships in a bit, but predominantly they are in our office because they have an international aspect. So it's always worth coming by and seeing what we got. So for any student who you are coming here to consider about giving them funding opportunities, more often than not, their first thought is, wow, I know what I want to do when I'm in college. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do a study abroad opportunity. And so their first thought is, how do I pay for that? Here is what we have uncovered that we are able to share with you about where a student might go for their very first step. It's critical to note that this is information from the Office of Financial Aid. This is not our department, but I'm trying to direct you to the right place to get this information first. So this link is going to lead you over to financial aid for current undergraduates when it comes to study abroad opportunities. I strongly encourage you that if a student is finding any difficulty, or if you're finding difficulty learning more information, that you do call their number. They're wonderfully helpful. They're very, very busy. Calling them is going to give you a lot of really good, clear answers. The steps to getting additional funding for study abroad is that you first complete the FAFSA, which is often associated with student loans. And then you will complete the study abroad worksheets that are supplemental to this work. Now, there are specific sheets that there are specific manners in which to follow this if you have CJIS students or students, LS&A students. They'll work directly with CJIS to be able to make sure the funding goes in the proper order for CJIS. And there are, for other non-CJIS programs, there are forms that will support the financial aid work for students who are seeing if they can get funding for that. At the end of all of the review of these documents, financial aid will make a final decision about how much funding, or if there is funding that a student can receive to support their study abroad. And then students will be able to go and check that in Wolverine Access. Now, it's worth noting that I'm certain a lot of students have concerns. Okay, maybe I won't get a ton of funding. Maybe this requires an additional loan. In some cases, that is just how it's going to play out. Going to a university costs money, having an experience at the university costs money, and study abroad is a part of that. And so as a result, that they may find themselves in a position where they don't have as much money as they want. That's why we're going to be continuing the conversation, talking about other opportunities they may have. For a moment, let's stop in on grad students. You can see this is slightly sparse. So we have, for students who are over the graduate school, there are a lot of different funding opportunities for them and also for departmental funding. But one of the reasons why, again, we're doing this presentation is we have more than just undergraduate funding opportunities. We have graduate funding opportunities, and the best offense is a good defense. For any undergraduate student who is considering that maybe in the future they might want to do a master's program or a PhD, the more they know about going into their undergrad, the better they're going to have success at supplemental funding for the work that they want to do when they eventually apply into grad school. So I wanted to keep that in mind. So now that we're here, we know that we've done our best to try and support students and get them to study abroad funding from the financial aid office. We did the best we could. We have searched our departments, and guess what? It's still going to be expensive. Okay, this is why it is worth your time to help consider talking with a student about fellowships and scholarships that might be of interest to them, that would give them a study abroad opportunity, or a study abroad-esque opportunity where they get to get outside the United States and do something really exciting. First of all, fellowships and scholarships are not necessarily for those people who are need-based. This isn't just for those who have absolutely no funding. There are opportunities for students to apply for things to get funding in which they don't necessarily have a huge financial burden. It's also not just for 4.0 students. One of the common misconceptions about the Fulbright program, which we'll talk about in a minute, is that, oh, this is just for the creme de la creme of all students existing in the United States. Not true. Many students, it is based on leadership, or it's based on the focus that they particularly have, that they want to work in a particular area. So it's always worth checking out and seeing what you are qualified to apply for, but it's worth noting there is something for everybody. Yes, they're competitive because getting money is difficult, but it's also not impossible. And for a lot of students, once they get the hang of applying, I wouldn't say you just duplicate immediately the applications you're utilizing, but you kind of you're building skills in application writing. Eventually, if you keep on knocking at that door, you're going to find that there's a pocket of money that you can receive. And my personal favorite part is they're going to pay you to go abroad. All this time you're worrying about doing study abroad and how much it's going to cost you. Hey, you want a fellowship. Now they're paying you to go out and do some really great work. They're also obviously great resume builders. Some of these are national scholarships that you can then list on your resume for the rest of your life. And then even just applying is incredible, great experiential learning. A lot of this requires having networking conversations with faculty members, writing essays about your future career goals, finding an affiliate, which is daunting at first, but is something that you can become more familiar with. For a lot of students with ambitions about saving the world, they're probably going to have to write things like grant proposals. This is a perfect stepping stone, fellowships and grants, in order to kind of get the ball rolling on other things in their career. So let's talk about them. We're going to share with you the top International Institute opportunities that every University of Michigan student should be aware of. For any academic advisors who are watching this, you don't have to feel like you've got to memorize this. This information is here for a reason. Please use our resources. We are happy to guide the student through all the particulars, but my aspiration is that if you just know a little bit about them, then when a student is talking to you and sharing their academic and career goals and what they want to do in the future, if they say something that just hits you in the back of your head and you're like, this sounds like a particular fellowship applicant that might really be successful in the Boren program, then you can help direct that student to us, and we'll have the opportunity to work with them and put them on the right path. Oh, sorry. Next one. First off, the Foreign Language and Area Studies program. So this is funding that came from the Department of Education. The University of Michigan applied for a grant for FLAS funding, and that means that we receive the money from the Department of Education, and annually we are able to award students money that includes tuition support, sometimes travel support, for them to learn languages that go into critical areas. To wit, a student studying Spanish, German, French, this is not going to support them. But a student who may have studied those languages and is interested in learning something like Thai, Chinese, Arabic, Yoruba, these are places in which we can find them additional pockets of funding because these are critical languages that fewer people speak in the United States, and the government is willing to help support the education of students to get this money. It's worth noting the University of Michigan has some of the most FLAS centers in the nation. So students are very fortunate. They should definitely check out the opportunities that are available here. It is available for enrolled students, and it's also open to undergraduate and graduate students, meaning a student who is applying to be a graduate student at the University of Michigan can simultaneously apply to get FLAS funding, so that when they enter in their first year of graduate school, they're also getting tuition support. Freshmen are not able to have FLAS, but they can start applying for it in their freshman year for the summer programs or for the next academic year. There is an expectation that freshman students are not going to be studying a language for the very first time when they receive FLAS. You don't normally receive this for first time education. There may be considerations for people who this is a second language that they're learning, meaning that they have their native language, perhaps they've been learning Spanish, and now they want to go and learn Quechua. So that this would be the second language, the second non-native language that they're learning. It is also something that, again, a freshman student might be able to consider, okay, I'm going to take the language once this year. Maybe I really want to learn Thai. So during my freshman year, I'll take a couple Thai courses, and then next year I'll apply for FLAS for Thai. It requires students who are doing this for the academic year, it requires them to take one language course and one area studies course each semester if they're doing it for their academic year. My colleague Dan is able to help students identify some courses that might work well with their academic aspirations. So it's not just, they have to take a history course in East Asian politics. There are some other opportunities that might exist that work better and more harmoniously with the student's academic schedule. Dan is great with that. For the summer programs, they're normally intensive language courses, and those are the ones that may lead the student to be able to go abroad over the summer to learn a critical language. So these are worth checking out for any student. The Boren Scholarships and Fellowships for International Study. These are my personal favorite. So I'm going to explain them, and there are going to be some areas where I'm sure when you hear about it, it's going to kind of catch for you, like, I don't know about that, but let me get through it. Let's see what we think, okay? So the Boren Scholarships and Fellowships are for graduate students up to $30,000 and for undergraduate students up to about $24,000. It is money from the Department of Defense to fund current students to go and spend an extensive period abroad to learn, again, critical languages, mostly non-European languages, critical languages around the world with the express purpose that when they come back and they complete their education, they're going to come work for the federal government in an area of national security to pay back the support that they received. On your Department of Defense isn't necessarily for everybody. For some people, it's great. And for other people, they're like, whoa, 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 I'm not interested. It's critical to note that when they say that they want to support national security interests, they don't just mean, setting up military bases in different countries. This can be national security, however the student interprets it. So if they're interested in climate change, immigration policy, women's education, LGBTQ positive plus rights, all of these things can be considered national security interests from the position of the United States. It depends on how you argue them. Again, that's our job. We're happy to help direct them in that regard. But it is a very open interpretation of national security. When we say that students have to come and work for the federal government, they'll only have to work for 1 year. When you're applying, you only want to say that you're willing to do more than 1 year, but it's only a 1 year requirement. When we say that they have to do it after their education, that also means that they don't have to go and work for the federal government until all of their education is complete. So maybe an undergraduate might want to do a graduate program, might want to get a PhD. They can tell the Boren program, hey, hold off, I'm not going to get my position yet. Boren is like, great, we'll wait till you are done getting as much education as you want, and then you can come work for the federal government. When they say, come work for the government, yes, their first interest is that you serve either in the Department of State, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, or in, I think, FBI, and other security efforts. But those are not at all the only places that people can go to work. They could work in the Department of Justice, the Department of Agriculture. They can work for contracting organizations like Goldman Sachs. They could work in the Space Force. There are many different locations in which a student can serve that responsibility back to the government. It is really worth considering, especially because this is an underutilized program. For a lot of the other programs I'm going to talk about, it can be very competitive, but Boren is not. Boren, we have a 60 to 80% success rate of getting students this funding. Once they get that funding, they get to go to the other country, study the language, and it's all on the government's dime. It's a great opportunity, and again, it's something that can lead to a future career if that's something that a student is interested in. Really worth the time to check it out. Our campus deadline is normally in January to give students as much time as possible to prepare their application, and then the national deadline is in late January, early February for a student to learn about the program and apply, and then find out whether or not they receive the award later that spring. By the way, jumping back real quick, just want to let you know that the application deadline for FLAS is February 1st every year. Okay, the International Institute Student Fellowships. This is a really great opportunity for students who are especially not U.S. citizens. So This is the ISF is a common application that houses a multitude of different funding opportunities. Some are from the International Institute, some are from the centers in the International Institute, some are from Rackham, and these are all funding opportunities that support predominantly research or internships abroad. It is important to note that because of this, there is kind of a wide variety of different things that a student can apply to regionally speaking, but also if they have particular interests, the centralized funds, specifically the GIG, the GIG, that is something that any current student can be applying to, and that supports kind of a catch-all of different international opportunities that a student might have. They will have to, in their essays, argue why this is a really valid opportunity for them. And then they'll be in the running for funding. It is still competitive, and just because you apply doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the funding. But it's definitely worth throwing your hat in the ring. And it's all open to current students. It can support summer opportunities and it can support academic year opportunities. The important thing is that for any student who's receiving funding, they must be coming back to the university after their experience. So they can't be graduating and then getting funding to come. Oh, and my apologies. And the application deadline is February 15th. So you will then receive information about whether or not you receive the award in the spring for that year's summer or next year's academic year opportunities. Okay, this is the coup de grace. This is the big one that the International Institute has. It's called the Fulbright U.S. Student Program. This is a jack of all trades federal program. It began in about I can never remember if it's the 40s or the 60s. It began right around the end of World War II. Senator Fulbright had a brilliant idea. He thought, hey, I know, why don't we not fight with other nations, and instead we'll use all that money that we would have used on a war, and we'll just send students around the world so they can collaborate with people and do research and share their culture with other people. It was a brilliant idea. Everybody loved it, and so it's been continued to this day and also duplicated in many different factions. But by and large, the Fulbright U.S. Student Program is a collection of different opportunities and bilateral agreements around the world where students can either conduct research, study the arts, or be English teachers abroad during and for as soon as they graduate and receive a bachelor's degree. So if you had a student who was considering for themselves, man, you know, I'm finishing up my undergraduate program. This has been so stressful. I've done so much education now for 16 years. I want to get out of the United States. If only I could just go somewhere. This is what they're looking for. This is a great opportunity for them to kind of just get out and see some things. So students can be applying after you receive a bachelor's degree as an alumnus, as a graduate student, all the way up until you receive a PhD. You can be applying for the Fulbright U.S. Student Program. The earliest someone can begin their application is in the winter of their junior year. So as you can see down below, the schedule is that the application will open in March of their junior year. They can begin applying at that time, and encourage them to come